I talked about the Infinite Ignition archetype just a little while ago, a couple videos ago or something, but now we have new support. So when I talked about it originally, I only talked about the first 2 cards revealed, and now we have 5 new cards revealed. So I thought, hey, why don't we talk about this archetype again and see where it's coming along as of right now with these 5 new cards. We still have 6 more cards to go before the archetype is officially over within this set, and so with that in mind, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the Infinite Ignition support that was just revealed a few days ago. So to start, we have Infinite Ignition Earthshaker. It is a rank 9 Earth Machine Xyz effect monster with 3100 attack, 2100 defense. Its materials are 2 level 9 monsters and it has the following effect. You can only use the first and third effects of this card's name once per turn. You can detach any number of materials from this card, then target an equal number of cards on the field. Destroy those targets. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as material. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute 1 Machine Link monster, special summon this card in defense position. So right off the bat, this is a rank 9, which is really interesting because again, in my prediction video, I didn't really think that this was going to be the case, but it just so happens to be the case. And I think that's really just interesting considering the fact that we have other Earth Machine cards like the Train cards. But then this card isn't even a rank 10 to synergize with the rest of that archetype. But regardless, it has the same last 2 effects as Riverstorm, where the destruction by battle effect and while it's in the grave effect. But what's interesting is its first effect. So the fact that you can detach any number of materials from it, then destroy an equal number of cards on the field is not bad at all. I mean, going second, obviously it's good because you're just gonna clear more cards, great. But at the same time, there are just so many inherent issues with this card. First, it's a rank 9, and I'm sure there will be easier ways to access this, but through these 5 cards, it isn't really the easiest thing to access this card as of right now. The thing is, it being a rank 9 just makes it so difficult to summon, and it honestly requires quite a lot of resource commitment. However, the difference is this. I think the big thing about this card, and the big thing about all of this support in general as of right now, is we need a card like Orcus Babel, which is basically a way to make your monsters have quick effects. So Babel says you can make all your Orcus quick effects, and the reason why that's so good is because you go ahead, do all of that, your Link monsters now can use their effects on your opponent's turn, and you can use your Orcus Engrave, summon to a zone Topologic Bomber Dragon point 2, although there's probably better combos now than Bomber Dragon, considering we have Orchestrated Nightmare, but that's besides the point. Basically, my point is the field spell would grant them quick play access, and so what I think this archetype needs is something very similar to Babel in the case that we need something to make these guys quick effects. Imagine this said quick effect in its first effect. That would make this card so much better. I mean, just think about it. This card becomes basically a Spiral Sleeper. Not really, because there's other intricacies with Spiral Sleeper. For example, if you have Last Resort, then it just becomes a free pop too, and it's hard to deal with, etc. But the idea is still there that this card basically says destroy 2 cards on your opponent's turn. If you want to hear my thoughts about Goliath and Riverstorm as well, go to my other video to check all of that out and my predictions from there, because that'll probably tie into some other points I'm going to make in this video. But one thing I do want to note is the fact that it has the same graveyard effect, the third effect. If it's in the graveyard, you contribute 1 Machine Link monster special and in defense mode. The reason why that's relevant is because that means that we're probably not going to get any other Infinite Ignition Link 1s. Goliath is the main Link 1 you're going to summon, and it's the only Link 1 you're going to summon, because that card is what completes this archetype strategy in the fact that tributing Link monsters or Xyz monsters or just Earth Machine monsters in general to bring them back, etc. Before we get to the Link monster, I want to talk about Infinite Ignition Colossal Mountain. It is a rank 7 Earth Machine Xyz effect monster with 2100 attack, 3100 defense. It requires 2 level 7 monsters, and it has the following effect. You can only use the first and third effect of this card's name once per turn. You can detach attach one material from this card gains 1000 attack. And then the second and third effect is the same as all the other Xyz monsters. So basically, I mean, this card's really garbage. You're not going to want to summon this and have it gain 1000 attack. I mean, that's just such a bad effect. I think at the same time there will be niche scenarios, because if you do need to summon a rank 7 and then you need a Link, etc., then you do have Colossal Mountain to help you out there. And I do think you definitely need to play this card at 1 copy, but regardless, its effect is just honestly awful. And if it was anything better, then I mean, this card would be so much better. But you're probably going to have to play it considering it's a rank 7 and it's an Infinite Ignition monster. Next, we have the big boy, the Link 3 Infinite Ignition Fortress Megaton Gale. It's a Link 3 Earth Machine Link effect monster with 4000 attack, and it has the link arrows of bottom left, bottom right, and right. It requires 3 Xyz monsters, and it has the following effect. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. This card is unaffected by the effects of monsters except Xyz monsters, and cannot be destroyed by battle except by Xyz monsters. Target 1 Xyz monster in your graveyard and 1 card your opponent controls. Special summon the first target and place the second target under that monster as material, but have any damage inflicted to your opponent for the remainder of this turn. So alright, there are some crazy things about this card and some inherent issues with it. First, I guess let's start with the bad. It requires 3 Xyz monsters. That's quite extravagant if you ask me. Obviously, I mean, it's a pretty beefy boy with 4000 attack, but at the same time, I think 4000 attack is big, and this is obviously supposed to be the big monster of the deck, but 3 Xyz monsters is still a lot. Its arrows are really good, but its effects aren't as good as you think. I think they're actually pretty good. The second effect is really good because not only is it a reborn, but then it puts a target card under the reborn monster, but we'll get to that in a second. It's unaffected by the effects of monsters except Xyz monsters and cannot be destroyed by battle except by Xyz monsters. So there are some issues with this effect. First, if you're playing against Orcus, well, they just summon Orcus Dingirsu, and yeah, no, say goodbye to your Megaton Gale. But at the same time, a lot of decks might not be able to deal with this. Not even Borosword or Borolo Dragon can deal with this card. Yes, this card can be affected by spells and traps, but ignoring that, if we're talking about a purely monster focused deck, then this card is really hard to out depending on what you're playing against. Honestly though, its second effect is really crazy. So the fact that you can just monster reborn any Xyz monster in your grave, remember, it doesn't have to be an Infinite Ignition monster. So maybe this was intended to be played with other generic Xyz monsters. That's probably the case, but that's besides the point. Not only is it dealing with any card your opponent controls, it doesn't have to be specifically a monster, but then it just puts it as material instead of like sending it to the grave or destroying it or something. That is actually really good. Another way to access this card easier is through the Zodiac engine, because obviously Zodiacs can put 2 Xyz monsters on the field very easily with a card like Chakanine. So 100% I think this card, if you can summon it, is honestly really good. The issue is obviously summoning it. Again, there's the Zodiac engine, but I don't think this card will be that easily accessible, and you don't really want to build a deck revolved around this card just because of how hard it's summoned, and I think the deck will just play this card as a one-of just for the versatility of having it rather than playing it for the sake of summoning it all the time. So the last 2 cards that were revealed are effect monsters. We have Infinite Ignition Rock Anchor. It's a level 4 Earth Machine effect monster with 1800 attack, 500 defense, and the following effect. You can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon 1 Earth Machine monster from your hand in defense position except Infinite Ignition Rock Anchor. Target 1 machine monster you control except this card. Until the end of this turn, the levels of this card and that monster become equal to the total combined levels of those 2 cards. So now the archetype is starting to make a lot more sense. For example, this card says I'm going to get you access to Earthshaker very easily. Unfortunately, there are some issues with this card that really make this card not nearly as good as it could have been. So let's talk about that. Obviously, it's a Goblinberg, so you can special summon any Infinite Ignition or any Earth Machine for that matter from your hand, but that's not really gaining you much advantage. This card just basically, long story short, makes your Xyz monsters easier to access. And while that's great and all, obviously you want to access your Xyz monsters, that's not really getting you anywhere in the grand scheme of things. It's not giving you any advantage. So honestly, this card just kind of falls flat when it comes to just giving you more advantage. It is essential, in my opinion, your bigger Xyz monsters, but at the same time, just the fact that it gives you no advantage, there might be some better cards to play. One thing I will mention though is it is a level 4 Earth Machine effect monster. And with that in mind, the next monster is level 5, meaning Urgent Schedule is a perfect fit for this archetype because they're all level 4 Earth Machines and level 5 Earth Machines. If they don't get something to give their Xyz monsters quick effects, then this is definitely a go second deck. But with all of that in mind, Urgent Schedule definitely is good for this archetype. So the last card we have, and I think actually the most interesting one, you'll understand why I say that in a second. We have Infinite Ignition Cancer Crane. It's a level 5 Earth Machine effect monster with 2100 attack, 500 defense, and the following effect. You can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. You can tribute one Earth Machine monster you control, special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can banish one machine monster from your graveyard, add one super contact expansion from your deck to your hand. So first off, we have a tribute effect, meaning you can just special summon this from your hand by tributing an Earth Machine. You'll probably be tributing the Xyz monster, and the reason why I say that is because its second effect will make more sense. Also, you have Goliath, which you can link this into and then bring back the Xyz monster, and so from there you can just go ahead and do all your shenanigans. So the special summon effect is nice, but you're losing card advantage on that front. However, the second effect makes up for that, and I think this is definitely the most interesting part of this entire wave of support, considering what predictions I could make for the next wave of support, the last 6 cards in this archetype. And that is, you can banish one machine monster from your grave, add one super contact expansion from your deck to your hand. First off, you're tributing an Earth Machine to summon this, so that means that you're already going to have a machine in your grave regardless. Even if you're tributing an Xyz monster, you can just banish one of the Xyz materials you use. But what's so interesting is they mentioned super contact expansion. Now that may not be the official name for the card because right now on YG Organization they haven't confirmed it. It's not confirmed right now to be super contact expansion, but I digress. Basically, because this card searches that one card specifically and not something like Infinite Ignition spell / trap, that means that super contact expansion might be very important for the archetype. We already have River Storm to search this out, for example, and then you can tribute River Storm to summon out Cancer Crane. And so actually that makes River Storm significantly better because if you get access to River Storm, that means you get access to super contact expansion and put the River Storm back on field. So 100% River Storm just became so much better with the introduction of this card. But I definitely am regarding super contact expansion as a high importance card considering you are searching specifically that and nothing else. Now what does that mean for just the rest of this archetype? Well, I have a few predictions now to mention. First off, I think super contact expansion, if this deck will be tier 1, super contact expansion needs to be insanely good. So like I've been mentioning, it needs to give your Infinite Ignition monsters a way to give disruption. So basically like Orcus Babel, for example. Then it could also search or special summon from deck, because another inherent issue with this deck right now is actually putting monsters on the field for you to Xyz with. So for example, we have Cancer Crane that can special summon itself, but we already need to control an Earth Machine, and you're not getting much value from tributing an Earth Machine as of right now. Maybe an Infinite Ignition card will give you more advantage if you tribute an Earth Machine. So like for example, if you have that and this, you normal summon that, then you tribute it, special Cancer Crane, then the one that was just tributed will special summon another Infinite Ignition from deck, and then you can make more plays from there. So I think that might be a combo card in the deck. Super Contact Expansion, if it special summons a card from deck, just makes this deck so much better. It will most likely be a field spell because usually you don't see cards like this in that high of a regard, so I don't see this card being like a quick play spell or something like that. I definitely see this being a field spell, which means, for example, you can use Terraforming, meaning you have 5 copies, then you have this, and then you can search it off of River Storm, making it even better. But regardless, those are just some predictions. I think what this deck needs right now, again, as I mentioned, Super Contact Expansion needs to 100% be broken in order for this deck to be even remotely relevant, because as of right now, it's just not promising whatsoever. We need definitely more ways to put bodies on field, and just some way of giving this deck disruption. Again, maybe Super Contact expansion solves all of those problems by itself, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens with the rest of the support. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to support me further than just watching my YouTube videos, go down into the description and support me on Patreon. It helps out quite immensely. As well, if you guys want to talk to me further than just my YouTube comment section, go down into the description and join my Discord server. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I hope to see you soon.